1999, and the illusion continues. One begs to ask, when will it end? Unnatural disasters happen seemingly every week. Train crashes, shootings, nuclear accidents. Is there any place of refuge one can flee from this insanity? Very few of mankind's creations are designed to make you feel good, unless you get pleasure from seeing the human body desecrated by guns, explosions, fights, and any other things these so-called artists create. In the name of freedom, many have used art as a means to destroy the human mind. As an excuse to continue, we hear, art reflects society. How many times has this lie been repeated? Creations are not real, they say, and yet any one of these people can call to mind images and complete scenes of horror and graphic detail. They will carry these so-called unreal creations around with them for the rest of their lives. These images are now a part of their being. In the name of recreation, these people in fact are recreating themselves and their own images. Society then reflects art. In man's decision to further separate from God, his recreation of himself leaves him in a dysfunctional state of confusion. The mind becomes a burial ground for dead waste. Isolated from the wholeness of God, earth, and his fellow brothers and sisters, this man seeks solace in activities he thinks will stimulate his mind. He then begins downloading into his brain a series of man-made creations designed to destroy it. All man-made creations originate from one of two sources: the tree of knowledge or the tree of life. One of these trees contains deadly fruit, the other fruit of everlasting life. The one who disregards this fact recreates himself and his kind into extinction. You are reading these words on a machine created by man. As you read, you hear a voice speaking to you the words that you perceive. They make sense to you because you understand. Stand under the spelling. The words are what binds this spell to your illusion. When you hear the truth, like a memory, you recognize it, and this recognition releases you from all illusion. Many languages are brilliant in their attempt to confuse you. Con meaning against, fuse meaning together. Words in their spell-binding illusions have the power to keep man separate from God. You were born in an all-knowing state of mind. The first words spoken to you begin the spell. The words come from one of two sources: the tree of knowledge or the tree of life. In ignorance or simply lack of respect for God, many use words that confuse the minds of humans and turn them into projections of their own illusions. Because of this fact, many people grow up and blindly assume their pre-selected role under a dictatorship without even being aware of it. When asked what they are doing here on earth, most will answer with statements that do not reflect their natural God-given desires. This creates a pyramid-like structure with the dictator on top and each level under it knowing less and less. Upon reaching the bottom level, which is where the majority is, you will find chaos, disorder, and illusion. With ill as its prefix, illusion is a state of insanity. In the name of democracy, supreme power is vested unto the people in this insane state instead of God. A future recreated to be ruled by man is one of isolation and despair. Returning the leadership back into God will allow mankind to achieve its original collective goal, which is union with God. Ideas contrary to this goal should not be blamed or persecuted, just simply ignored. They originated when man first chose to ignore God's rule. Simply put, in the beginning the human was made perfect in God's image. They had no need for knowledge. They were also given freedom of choice. The tree of knowledge and the tree of life are reflections of this freedom. The human is now a reflection of their choice. They could have simply chose not to choose. God being centrifugal in nature, freedom was the cause, and choice was the effect. In knowing their perfection made in God's image, there was no need to choose. In fact, there were no needs. There was only love in an all-knowing state before the fall. The worst thing you can do is give up your God-given right to choose. For in it, you can choose not to choose. Therein is the final judgment. The illusion ceases, and you awaken from your dream. Now the healing begins. With an all-knowing mind made in God's image, you can create as your creator, God intended. With love, honor, and respect for every living thing in the universe. Separation ceases, and we all become one being, singing the one song.
I have a pretty serious question for you to start things off today. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself when you answer it.
Oh boy, coming in hot right out of the gate.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
So have you ever found yourself sitting on your couch, staring at a screen, completely paralyzed by this relentless, unyielding stream of negative news?
Right, just the infinite scroll.
Exactly. The disaster footage, the absolute chaos that you're just swiping through hour after hour.
Yeah, and you can feel your heart rate elevating while you do it.
You really can. You get this creeping, heavy sense of despair that just settles right into your chest, and yet you cannot look away. You feel entirely stuck.
It's a very specific kind of modern exhaustion.
Right. But what if that feeling of being stuck isn't just a byproduct of a long day or a busy week? What if that paralysis is actually the intended result of a spell?
I mean, it's a genuinely unsettling concept to entertain.
It sounds crazy at first.
It does. But when you start to look at the actual mechanics of how we consume information and how we interact with the reality being presented to us, the idea of being under a spell suddenly stops feeling like some medieval fairy tale.
Yeah, it starts feeling uncomfortably real.
Very real. It feels like a very clinical, highly accurate diagnosis of our modern condition.
And that is exactly the territory we are venturing into today. Our mission for this deep dive is to carefully, and I mean really methodically, unpack this incredibly thought-provoking, heavily cryptic monologue.
Yes, and it's from someone you wouldn't necessarily expect to be delivering a sweeping philosophical treatise.
Right, the legendary artist Prince. The piece is titled One Song. And alongside this primary text, we also have a piece of commentary we're using as a source.
Which is really helpful context.
Yeah, it describes Prince's work here as this profound journey of awakening and a vital sharing of secrets about the world of arts and entertainment.
To set the stage properly for you, we have to acknowledge the sheer ambition of what Prince is doing in this text. I mean, this is not a standard celebrity critique of the paparazzi.
No, not at all. It's not just a complaint about bad television.
Right. It is a sweeping, comprehensive thesis on human nature itself. He is diving into the mechanics of free will, the origin of our thoughts, and these deeply embedded linguistic traps.
Traps that, in his view, keep humanity locked in a permanent state of illusion.
Exactly.
So our goal today is to look directly at the text to confirm exactly what his interpretation of humanity actually entails. We want to be rigorous here.
We need to verify if our understanding of what Prince is saying is factual to the text itself.
Yeah, we're going to examine the internal logic of his arguments, pressure test them, and explore how these chilling warnings, which, by the way, were recorded back around the year 1999, map onto your reality right now.
Because, honestly, the way he predicts our current digital lives is almost prophetic.
It really is. I mean, he's essentially asking us to dismantle and completely reevaluate the very foundation of how we perceive reality.
He is challenging the entire purpose of our societal structures. He's forcing you to interrogate the true nature of the art and media you willingly consume every single day.
So I want to jump right into the deep end, because Prince does not ease into this at all.
No, he really doesn't.
He starts by completely obliterating a very famous, very comfortable cliche about art and society.
Oh, the classic defense mechanism.
Right. We have all heard the phrase, art reflects society. It is essentially the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for creators of violent or toxic media.
They always fall back on that.
Always. They say, hey, don't blame me for the violence on screen. I'm just holding a mirror up to the real world.
It is the most entrenched defense of the entire creative industry. But Prince looks at that mirror defense and calls it out explicitly as a repeated lie.
A lie. That's a strong word to use.
It is. But to understand why he says that, we have to look at the historical context of when he's writing this. It was 1999.
Right, so the cultural zeitgeist was heavily centered around Y2K anxiety.
Exactly. And the birth of the relentless 24-hour news cycle, horrifying public tragedies like Columbine, people were deeply, deeply anxious.
Yeah, the world felt very fragile.
It did. Prince points out that the illusion continues, and he asks when it will end. He draws attention to what he categorizes as unnatural disasters happening seemingly every week.
He lists things like train crashes, shootings, nuclear accidents.
Yeah, he was observing a world that felt like it was actively spinning out of control.
And he makes this really striking, almost uncomfortable observation about how we process all that chaos. He says that very few of mankind's creations are actually designed to make you feel good.
Which is true when you look at the top box office movies or video games.
Right. Instead, he argues that people are actively deriving pleasure from seeing the human body desecrated.
Desecrated, that's such a heavy word.
It is. He lists guns, explosions, fights, and all these other destructive elements that, quote, so-called artists manufacture.
This is where his argument becomes incredibly structural and psychological. He is dismantling the excuse that art reflects society by pointing out the actual psychological mechanism at play.
So how does he break that down?
Well, the creators of this violent media defend themselves by claiming these creations are not real.
Right. Yeah, they argue it's just fantasy, just a movie, just pixels on a screen.
Exactly. But Prince counters this by looking at the biological and psychological reality of the consumer. He notes that anyone who views these creations can immediately, upon command, call to mind those specific images and complete scenes of horror in graphic detail.
Because you don't just watch a horrific scene and erase it from your hard drive.
No, you don't.
It literally stays with you.
The brain doesn't neatly compartmentalize trauma just because it happened on a screen.
Precisely. And the neuroscience of this actually backs him up entirely. We have mirror neurons in our brains that fire both when we act and when we observe the same action performed by someone else.
Oh, wow. So your brain is literally simulating the violence you're watching. Yes. The brain processes observed experiences with a frightening level of reality. So Prince explicitly states in the text, they will carry these so-called unreal creations around with them for the rest of their lives. These images are now a part of their being.
A part of their being. That is wild.
It leads to his devastating conclusion. In the name of recreation, people are actively recreating themselves.
Wait, recreating themselves?
Yes, they are recreating their own internal images based on this violent, horrifying media. Therefore, Prince argues, it is not that art reflects society, it is that society reflects art.
Okay, that makes sense. It's almost like, think about building a house with radioactive bricks.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right, like the architect might tell you, don't worry, the radiation is just a simulation. It's just for aesthetic effect. It's not real.
But you're still living in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you take those bricks and use them to construct the walls you sleep inside, you're going to get sick. You cannot expect to be healthy living inside a toxic structure.
Yeah, the material dictates the environment.
So Prince is essentially saying the exact same thing is happening to the human mind. If you feed the mind a constant diet of desecration, violence, and toxic waste, the mind itself becomes toxic.
You are quite literally building your internal landscape out of the horrors you consume.
I am completely tracking with the logic here, but I do want to push back on his specific wording because it feels incredibly heavy.
Okay, go part.
Well, Prince claims that these artists create this violence in the name of freedom as a means to destroy the human mind.
Right.
Is he suggesting that there is a deliberate, coordinated sabotage of human sanity happening, like some shadowy cabal of Hollywood directors plotting our demise in a back room?
It's a crucial distinction to make, and the text is very deliberate in its phrasing here.
So what is the factual interpretation of his words?
When we look closely, he says, in the name of freedom, many have used art as a means to destroy the human mind. While he doesn't necessarily outline a literal conspiracy in a smoke-filled room, he absolutely describes a systemic, functional reality where the result is deliberate destruction.
So the system itself is the problem.
Yes. From his philosophical standpoint, whether an individual artist fully comprehends the cosmological damage they are doing is almost beside the point.
The outcome is exactly the same either way.
Exactly. The mechanism itself is actively destructive. The mask they wear is freedom of expression and recreation.
But the tangible reality is the desecration of the human mind.
Right. He treats this not as a harmless accident of pop culture, but as a severe active violation.
Which is crazy when you think about how this maps onto your own doom-scrolling habits today.
Yeah.
I mean, Prince was making this observation in 1999, looking at television screens sitting across the living room.
He couldn't have even imagined the smartphone.
No, the desecration he warned about is sitting in your pocket right now. It is attached to your hand 24 hours a day.
It's the first thing you look at when you wake up.
And the last thing you see before you sleep. We are carrying the tools of our own mental recreation everywhere we go, constantly refreshing the feed for more disaster, more outrage.
It is an exponential amplification of the exact mechanism he described. If those images become a permanent part of your being, as he argues, what happens to the human psyche when the influx of those images never, ever stops?
It's terrifying. Which naturally begs the question, if art and media are these radioactive bricks, why are we so eager to build our houses with them?
Why do we keep going back to the hardware store for more toxicity?
Yeah, why is the human mind so incredibly vulnerable to being hacked by these images in the first place?
To answer that, Prince actually goes back to the very foundation of human existence. He traces this vulnerability all the way back to humanity's original separation from the divine.
Okay, so we're getting theological here.
Yes. According to his text, it is man's initial decision to further separate from God that leaves him in a profoundly dysfunctional state of confusion.
He uses this visceral, haunting phrase to describe that state. He says the mind actually becomes a, quote, burial ground for dead waste.
It is a bleak image, but it speaks to a profound psychological isolation. Prince describes man as being isolated from three distinct things:
What are the three?
the wholeness of God, the earth, and his fellow brothers and sisters.
So complete, total alienation.
Yes. Because of this trifold isolation, man is left existing in a massive void. He is disconnected from his natural state of being.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. And when a human being is in a void, they desperately seek solace. They look for activities that will stimulate their mind to fill the emptiness.
But because they are operating from a state of dysfunction and separation?
Yeah, the things they reach for are inherently destructive.
Right. I'm really snagged on the vocabulary he uses here, though. He says this isolated man then begins downloading into his brain a series of man-made creations designed to destroy it.
The word downloading is so fascinating there.
It is. He used that exact word in 1999. I want to really understand how he defines this dead waste. I mean, even from a completely secular perspective, what does a mind look like when it's just accumulating this stuff?
It's really helpful to bridge his theological language with observable psychology here. According to Prince's framework, all man-made creations originate from one of two foundational sources.
The two trees.
Yes, the tree of knowledge or the tree of life. He states that one of these trees contains deadly fruit, and the other contains the fruit of everlasting life.
Now, the idea of the tree of knowledge being deadly might seem really counterintuitive to a modern listener.
Yeah.
I mean, we are taught to revere knowledge, right? Go to school, get a degree, stay informed.
Right, it feels backward at first. But think about it in terms of endless data consumption without any underlying wisdom.
Oh, I see.
A mind cut off from the wholeness of God, or, in secular terms, cut off from grounding, purpose, and community, is a mind indiscriminately consuming deadly fruit.
So the dead waste is just the sheer, overwhelming accumulation of data.
Yes, violent art, horrors, the shallow illusions of the world. It looks like modern anxiety. It looks like a graveyard of fragmented, destructive images that have completely replaced natural, coherent connection.
So the burial ground is basically the modern, burnt-out mind.
That's a perfect way to put it.
You know, you scroll past a horrifying news story about a natural disaster, and then literally a second later, you are looking at a meme of a cat and then an advertisement for shoes.
And your brain has no idea what to do with that emotional whiplash.
You can't process the emotional weight of any of it, so it just becomes this numb, dead waste.
And Prince is totally uncompromising on the stakes here. He says that the one who disregards this fact recreates himself and his kind into extinction.
Extinction. Man, he is not messing around.
It is not a metaphor for him. And you're right, the concept of downloading might have been slightly metaphorical for the human brain back in the era of dial-up internet, but today...
It is breathtakingly literal.
Yes. Every single time you open an app, you are actively downloading information into your brain's architecture.
Prince forces you to pause and evaluate the source code of that information. Like, are you downloading fruit that fosters connection, empathy, and life? Or are you downloading the constant stream of outrage and despair that is turning your consciousness into a burial ground?
It's a heavy self-audit to perform.
It really is. But, okay, if our vulnerability stems from this deep isolation, we have to look at how we actually try to connect with each other.
Yes.
And this is where the text takes a turn that genuinely blew my mind. Prince doesn't just blame visual art or screens for this isolation.
No, he goes much deeper.
He targets the most fundamental building block of human connection we have, the words we speak.
This is the pivot where his text transitions from a sharp cultural critique into a profound linguistic and esoteric philosophy. Prince actually breaks the fourth wall here.
He talks directly to the reader.
He addresses the audience directly, writing, "You are reading these words on a machine created by man. As you read, you hear a voice speaking to you."
He pulls you entirely out of the abstract theory and right into the physical present moment of consuming his art.
He does. And once he has your attention on the medium itself, he drops the hammer. He says, "The words that you perceive, they make sense to you because you understand under the spelling. The words are what binds the spell to your illusion."
Understand under the spelling. That is such an incredible piece of wordplay.
It is brilliant.
He is taking the literal concept of spelling, arranging letters to form a word, and equating it to casting a magical spell over someone's mind.
It's a complete deconstruction. And it actually touches on a very real concept in linguistics known as linguistic determinism.
Oh, is that the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis?
Exactly. The idea that the structure of a language entirely shapes a person's perception of reality. If you don't have a word for something, can you even experience it?
Right.
Prince is taking that to its absolute esoteric limit. He goes on to dissect the word confuse.
I love this part.
He points out that the prefix con means against, and fuse means together. So to confuse someone is literally to act against their togetherness.
To actively block their unity.
Precisely. He argues that many languages are essentially designed, in their very architecture, to do exactly this. Words, with their spellbinding illusions, have the actual power to keep man separate from God and from each other.
Okay, I have to stop and unpack this because I'm trying to wrap my head around a massive paradox here.
Let's hear it.
If language itself, the very structure of words we use, is a spell designed to confuse us and keep us separated, how on earth can Prince use language to write this monologue and try to wake us up?
It's a valid question.
Right. Isn't he just casting another spell? How do you use the tool of the illusion to break the illusion?
It is the ultimate tension at the heart of any spiritual or esoteric teaching that relies on text. But Prince provides the escape hatch within his own argument.
What does he say?
He writes, "When you hear the truth like a memory, you recognize it. And this recognition releases you from all illusion."
Like a memory. Okay, so it's not new information.
Exactly. The text states that you were born in an all-knowing state of mind. The knowledge of the truth isn't something you need to acquire from the outside world.
You don't need to read a million books to find it.
No, it is something you already possess internally, perfectly, from birth. But then, as he says, the first words spoken to you begin the spell.
So you forget it.
Yes. So the words Prince is using in this monologue are not meant to impart new external data from the tree of knowledge. They are carefully selected to act as a trigger. They are designed to bypass the intellectual spell of language and strike a resonant chord with that pre-existing, all-knowing memory buried inside of you.
It's the internal recognition of the truth that releases you, not the external linguistic structure of his sentences.
Exactly. It's a vibration almost.
That completely shifts how you have to interact with his writing. It's not about agreeing with his thesis on an intellectual level like grading an essay. It's about whether you feel it in your gut.
It changes the entire reading experience.
And I want to pause and point out the incredible meta nature of what we are doing right now in this deep dive.
Oh, we are right in the middle of it.
As you listen to our voices speaking to you right now, conveying Prince's ideas, you are engaging in exactly the phenomenon he is describing. You are processing words.
You're listening to a spell.
So you have to ask yourself, are the words we are speaking right now binding you further into an intellectual, analytical illusion? Or are they triggering a memory of something you already knew deep down to be true?
It demands an incredibly active, conscious form of listening. You cannot passively consume this.
No, you can't just have this on in the background while you fold laundry and expect to get it.
You have to constantly check inward to feel for that resonance, to see if the words are echoing against that original memory of truth.
It's fascinating. But let's look in the bigger picture here. If our foundational tool for connection, which is language, is actually a tool of separation and confusion, then any society built on that language is inherently going to be fractured.
It has to be. The foundation is cracked.
Which brings us to the macro level of his argument. What happens when billions of people all under this spell, try to build a world together.
It scales up into a massive, chaotic societal structure. Prince argues that because of this linguistic spell and the deep confusion it causes, people grow up and blindly assume their pre-selected role.
Blindly assume.
Yes, they assume a pre-selected role under a dictatorship without even being aware of it.
Blindly assuming a pre-selected role.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate loss of agency. You think you are making life choices, but you're just following a script written by the spell.
And he offers proof of this loss of agency. He notes that if you ask most people what they are doing here on Earth, their answers will not reflect their natural, God-given desires.
What will they say instead?
They will simply echo the demands of the spell. They will talk about their jobs, their social status, their material goals, things that have nothing to do with their true spiritual nature.
And this creates what he describes as a pyramid structure.
Right. Correct. He visualizes the structure of human society as a giant pyramid. At the absolute apex, the very top, you have the dictator.
Okay.
Beneath that, you have descending levels, with each level knowing progressively less than the one above it. Finally, when you reach the massive bottom level, which is where the vast majority of humanity resides, you find nothing but chaos, disorder, and illusion.
And he does that same kind of linguistic deconstruction with the word illusion here, doesn't he?
He does. He points out the prefix ill. He argues that with ill as its prefix, illusion defines a literal state of sickness, a state of insanity.
Wow.
Therefore, the majority of the world, trapped at the bottom of the societal pyramid, separated from God and completely bound by the spell of language, is operating in a state of collective functional insanity.
That is a staggering diagnosis of society.
It leaves no room for debate.
Now, before we dive into what this means for human governance, I want to make something very clear to the listener.
Always a good idea.
In our deep dive today, our job isn't to endorse Prince's politics or take a left-wing or right-wing stance on any of this.
Absolutely not.
We aren't here to advocate for a specific political system or tell you how to vote. We are here to impartially unpack his deeply fascinating, absolute rejection of all human governance. Because his critique is totally uncompromising across the board.
It is absolute. He directly targets the very concept of democracy, which is jarring for many people to hear.
Yeah, that's usually the sacred cow you don't touch.
Right. But his logic is consistent within his framework. He argues that in the name of democracy, supreme power is vested unto the people.
Okay, sounds good on paper.
But if we follow his established logic, the people are currently existing in an insane state of illusion at the bottom of the pyramid.
Oh. I see where this is going.
Therefore, vesting supreme power into an insane, spellbound populace, instead of returning it to God, is a catastrophic compounding of the error.
You're handing the keys of the asylum to the patients.
Essentially, yes. He states clearly that a future recreated to be ruled by man, meaning any man, under any system whatsoever, is one guaranteed to end in isolation and despair.
So if he equates this ill state with widespread insanity, and he views the majority of society as trapped in this chaotic pyramid, and he entirely rejects the idea of mankind ruling itself, what is his definition of true leadership?
It's the logical next question.
If every human system is broken, whether it's a monarchy, democracy, whatever, how do we organize? What do we do?
The text provides a very unambiguous answer. True leadership means entirely removing mankind from the throne and returning the leadership back to God.
A complete surrender of human governance.
Yes. Prince states that returning the leadership to God is the only way mankind will achieve its original collective goal, and that goal is not economic prosperity.
It's not about GDP.
Right. It's not geopolitical dominance or technological advancement. The singular goal of humanity is spiritual union with God.
Okay, we are at the precipice here. This is the crux of the whole thing.
It is.
If we are currently trapped at the bottom of this chaotic pyramid, blindly acting out pre-selected roles, and if we're operating under a literal spell cast by the language we speak.
And consuming dead waste.
Yes, and constantly surrounded by radioactive media, tempting us to turn our minds into burial grounds. How do we get out?
How do we escape the matrix?
Exactly. How do we escape the pyramid and actually return to that union he's talking about?
To find the exit, Prince says we have to look back to the entrance. We have to go back to the beginning.
Take me back.
He explains that in the beginning, the human was made perfect in God's image, and in that state of perfection, there was no need for knowledge.
No need for knowledge.
None. There was only love, existing in an all-knowing state before the fall.
I am really struck by that phrase. No need for knowledge. We spend our entire lives, our entire cultural focus on accumulating knowledge.
We measure our worth by it.
We do. degrees, data, the 24-hour news, trivia. And he is saying that in our natural perfect state, we didn't need a single drop of it.
Because if you are already in an all-knowing state, seeking external knowledge is totally redundant.
It's like trying to pour a glass of water into the ocean.
Beautifully put, and ultimately, it's distracting. But alongside this perfection, humans were endowed with something highly volatile.
Freedom of choice.
Yes. Prince explains the origin of this freedom through a very specific, almost cosmic physics logic. He says God is centrifugal in nature.
Wait, hold on. Walk me through that. Centrifugal.
Yeah, it's a very specific word choice.
Like the force in a washing machine that pushes the water outward, away from the center.
Yeah.
How does a physics term apply to God and free will? I'm struggling to see the connection there.
It's a dense metaphor, but it's brilliant when you map it out. If you think of a centrifugal force, it is energy radiating outward from a central point.
Okay.
If God is the center, his energy is entirely outward flowing. It is the energy of creation, of giving, of expanding.
So God isn't pulling things in to control them.
Exactly. Because God is constantly pushing this creative energy outward, it naturally creates a vast open space, an environment of ultimate freedom.
I'm with you.
In Prince's logic, freedom is the cause created by this centrifugal nature, and choice is the inevitable effect. You cannot have an outward expanding universe of absolute freedom without simultaneously creating the capacity for choice.
Oh, wow. So choice isn't some test God set up to trip us up. It's just the structural reality of freedom.
Precisely. So when we look at the tree of knowledge and the tree of life,
They are merely reflections of this inherent freedom.
yes, they aren't traps set to trick humanity. They are the necessary architectural features for freedom of choice to legitimately exist. You have to have options to have choice.
But something went wrong.
Right. Prince notes a tragedy here. Knowing their perfection made in God's image, there was originally no actual need to choose the tree of knowledge.
Because they were already perfectly full.
But humanity did choose it anyway. And now, the human condition, this whole illusion, the pyramid, the burial ground, is merely a reflection of that original separating choice.
But wait, if choice is the unavoidable effect of God's centrifugal freedom, and the act of choosing is what caused the fall into the illusion in the first place, what is the ultimate solution?
It's the big question.
Do we just scramble to choose the tree of life instead?
This is the philosophical climax of the entire text, and it's profound. The solution is not picking the right side of the illusion. The solution is the realization of a hidden third option.
A third option.
Prince writes, "The worst thing you can do is give up your God-given right to choose, for in it you can choose not to choose."
Choose not to choose. That is staggering.
It flicks the whole board over.
It really feels very connected to ancient philosophies, like the Taoist concept of wu wei or non-action, or even Stoicism, where true power comes from refusing to react to external stimuli.
Yes, the power of stillness.
It's like, imagine you are born onto a massive, chaotic battlefield.
Okay, paint the picture.
There are two armies fighting relentlessly in the mud. From the moment you can walk, generals from both sides are screaming at you, handing you weapons, demanding to know which flag you're going to fight for.
Right, left versus right, up versus down.
Exactly. The illusion, the spell, tells you that your only agency in life is picking an army. But choosing not to choose is the sudden radical realization that you don't have to pick up a sword at all.
You realize you don't belong in the mud.
You can just drop the weapon, turn your back on the screaming generals, and walk entirely off the battlefield. You aren't surrendering your agency. You are exercising your ultimate agency by refusing the binary options presented by the illusion.
That analogy captures the exact mechanism he is advocating for perfectly. Why do we feel forced to pick a side?
Because the spell tells us we have to.
Because the conflict itself is what fuels the illusion. The pyramid relies on the friction of the people at the bottom fighting each other. By choosing not to choose, you are starving the illusion of the energy it needs to sustain itself.
You just stop feeding the machine.
You are exercising your freedom of choice to its absolute highest degree by refusing to engage with the mechanics of separation.
So, if we walk off that battlefield and reach this awakened state, how does Prince say we should view the opposing ideas? Do we then turn around and fight against the illusion? Do we attack the dictators at the top of the pyramid to free everyone else?
No. And this is a vital, non-negotiable part of his instruction.
Really? No resistance.
When it comes to ideas or structures that are contrary to the goal of union, Prince is explicit. They should not be blamed or persecuted. They should, in his exact words, simply be ignored.
Just ignored. Wow.
He explains that these contrary ideas originated when man first chose to ignore God's rule. Therefore, fighting the illusion on its own terms, using anger, blame, or persecution, just feeds more energy into the spell.
It keeps you on the battlefield.
It drags you right back into the mud. The path forward is a radical, disciplined ignorance of the illusion and a total unwavering focus on union.
And when we finally achieve that, what happens? What is the end of the text?
Prince says, "Therein is the final judgment. The illusion ceases and you awaken from your dream. Now the healing begins."
That is so powerful.
With your all-knowing mind restored to its perfect state, you can finally create as your creator originally intended, with love, honor, and respect for every living thing in the universe. The unnatural separation ceases. We all become one being.
And he leaves us with a beautiful singular command, right?
Yes, sing the one song.
Sing the one song. It's incredibly moving. It takes us from the depths of a mental burial ground all the way back to divine harmony.
It's a complete hero's journey of consciousness.
And this brings us to the second source we had for today's deep dive, that brief piece of commentary.
The one from the author reflecting on Prince's work.
Yeah, the author describes Prince's monologue as the most poignant piece of work they have ever come across. They call it a true journey of awakening, an exposing of secrets.
They clearly felt that internal resonance Prince was aiming for.
They really did. And they leave us with a challenge. They write, "If you love humanity, you will share this with as many people as you can."
Sharing this realization, helping others remember the truth and break the linguistic spell, is framed as an act of profound love.
Because if Prince's thesis holds true, waking someone up from the illusion by triggering that internal memory is the only way to save them from the burial ground of the mind.
It is not just sharing an interesting piece of art. It is the ultimate act of psychological and spiritual rescue.
What an absolute marathon of a journey we just took. I mean, we started by unpacking the dark, heavy realization that society is actively mimicking the violent, desecrating art it consumes, turning our minds into toxic burial grounds.
We explored the deeply unsettling linguistic reality that the very words we speak might be a spell, a confusion designed to keep us isolated.
We looked at the chaotic pyramid of human governance, where the vast majority of us are ruled by the dictates of a sick illusion.
And finally, we found the exit door.
The profound, liberating realization that our ultimate freedom lies in our ability to simply choose not to choose, allowing us to awaken, heal, and return to an all-knowing state of love.
To wrap up our analysis today, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that connects directly to the mechanics of the spell.
Leave them with something to think about.
Prince told us that the first words ever spoken to you began the spell that bound you to an illusion. If that is true, I want you to consider the internal monologue running inside your own head right now.
Oh, that's interesting.
The constant narration, the snap judgments you make, the anxieties, the desires for things you don't really need. Are the thoughts you hear your own original natural desires? Or are they just the echoes of a spell you've been under your entire life?
That is a question that will legitimately keep you up at night, but in the best way possible. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Take a moment of silence when this ends. Step away from your machines, turn off your screens, and see if you can feel that memory of the truth he talked about. Until next time, take care.